When you hear that bell, you know you're in the championship rounds with the one and only King Amin of Essex, and I got my guy, probably one of my favorite sparring partners back. Scotty Goodard is here, Norwich, England's own. And we got some things to talk about. But before we do, Scotty, tell them where they can find you at.
Definitely. You can find me on Instagram at scotty.boxing on Instagram. You can see plenty of my white collar fights and the social media fights that go on these days today.
Awesome. Be sure to check him out, man. This guy's, he's been going live a lot lately too. So be sure to check out his lives. You don't want to miss nothing. He might be dropping a jewel on him.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of one of those jewels, because I think you might have went live as soon as I sent it to you. We're talking Usyk and Fury.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What a tasty fight. Do you know what? I think a lot of casuals, they see this fight and they go, oh, Tyson Fury will batter him. But they don't know this Usyk's had 300 amateur fights, has a decent resume as a pro career already. And I think it'll be a good fight. Don't get me wrong, maybe Fury would probably beat him, but I still would love this fight. And I think Usyk has still a lot more to come for him.
So let's talk a little bit. We'd be complete idiots, as they say in London, if we don't talk about Usyk and Joshua. And just briefly, we know what's happened, more or less the fallout when, Usyk immediately said it's either Fury or no one else. I think that kind of put everybody in the rest of the division, especially the promotional companies, on notice. But, if Usyk is to have, because we saw what he did with Joshua. Some people, like myself, I had it 115, 113 Joshua, but apparently some people thought Usyk did enough to win. What are some of the things you think he can do against a guy like Fury?
Well, I think Fury has shown a weakness sometimes to the lighter and smaller guy. Example, when he fought Steve Cunningham. He got caught there. And I know they say it's not the same Fury, but, it can always happen again. Always.
That's a good point. You kind of snuck that one in there because a lot of people forget about that. Was probably the only time he got, the most recent time before with Wilder, he got knocked down in a fight was against Steve Cunningham, who was, guess what? A cruiserweight, career cruiserweight for the most part. Exactly. So very intelligent point, my friend. And so also on the heels of that, I mean, suppose you didn't have, or I don't want to be pessimistic, but suppose you don't have Fury and Usyk being able to be made. Does that clear the way for a guy like Deontay Wilder that slowly, we called him on this platform, we called him the second best heavyweight. Does he just slowly sneak his way right back into the picture if that fight doesn't happen?
I think he does, definitely. If that fight don't happen, that will definitely, I think Wilder's got a chance of sneaking his way back in and becoming the highlight of boxing again for heavyweights.
Because if we had to see it, if we had to see Usyk and Wilder, if that fight were to happen, who do you think has the advantage?
I'd have to say Wilder, just due to his heavy hands. And, I think definitely Wilder. And not only that, just height in general. I know they say, obviously, height don't mean much, especially to Usyk. I mean, all of his opponents are bigger than him. But it's always an advantage being the taller guy.
Yeah, and I kind of think, man, when I look at that fight and I say, wow, Wilder got undone, so to speak, by a boxer. We know Usyk is a consummate boxer, but Wilder's power is ungodly. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. And so it's like, I always call it like Sam from Game of Thrones. He's the only man to kill the White Walkers and live to tell the tale of it. Tyson Fury is Sam, you dig? Like, he could live to tell the tale. I got put down twice in one round by Deontay Wilder, and I got up, like, you know what I mean? So
definitely.
A lot of exciting stuff going on in and around the heavyweight division. Surely, also, just before we move on, you heard Andy Ruiz's dad saying that eventually he wants to see his son, Andy Ruiz, who's going up against Luis Ortiz. He wants to see his son fight Deontay Wilder. What do you think about that fight at heavyweight?
That's a fight that could go both ways. Do you know, I can't even predict that. I think if Andy Ruiz come out as the Andy Ruiz we all saw that night, he has a good chance against Wilder, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think not looking past Luis Ortiz, but I do think he beats Ortiz in devastating fashion.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that one. I feel like Luis Ortiz, excuse me. Yeah, Luis Ortiz. No, excuse me. Luis Ortiz, this is it. I don't want to see him in another matchup against Wilder. I don't want to see that.
No.
But Andy Ruiz is a compelling match because just using the term, guys that are more in their head, like the fight for these guys is in their head before they ever get in the ring. And if Ruiz is on point against Wilder, and again, another boxer, Andy Ruiz his physique gave people the wrong impression because the boy got hands. He can box his ass off. He just, you know what I'm saying?
Mexican style.
Whoa. And so, kind of being able to, take some punches. We saw him take Joshua's punches. We saw him take Areola, who's a heavy puncher. That would be an intriguing fight to say. But moving on from the heavyweight division, we're going to jump down to the featherweights. And we might even get a little lower with the weight classes, but we're going to start featherweights. We're going to start on your side of the pond. Speaking of a man, Leigh Wood. He's in there against Mauricio, Bronco, Lara. Tell me, what you think about Leigh Wood? What do you think about this fight?
This is a good fight, really good fight. I think Leigh Wood's got it in the bag again. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like he's got it in the bag again. I remember a lot of people when he fought Michael Coleman, a lot of people were looking over him saying that he was going to get smashed to bits. And to be honest, watching the first round, I thought he was going to get smashed. But do you know what I mean? That Leigh Wood is a really special fighter, I think. And I think there's just something about him that not a lot of fighters have got.
Yeah, I think Lara, the big win, he had the big win over Warrington. And, that's kind of resonated for some time. But now I think stepping up against Leigh Wood, and I think this is a step up for him as well. No discredit to Warrington, but I think Wood had to show that resiliency. You know what I'm saying? He got DDT'd in that fight, right? Was it that fight that really sloppy? Yeah. Like, it was a very sloppy fight, and the resiliency he showed, man, I think against, Lara, I think he can. He's going to make his reputation known. And I think just skill-wise, he's got the boxing, he's got the power, his footwork is pretty good. And I see it's his fight to lose. I got nothing against Lara because I rode that wave, but I think Lara's rise for me was more predicated on Warrington's deficits. And I think Wood is a more evenly matched fighter, man.
Definitely, yeah. And like I said, it is a fair fight. Like you just said, it's an even match. It's a fair fight. And I can't wait for it. I'm a huge fan of Leigh Wood.
Yeah, no, listen, I try to find these fights that are interesting on both sides of the pond, man, because the depth of up and rising contenders and fighters in the UK is a little bit more deeper than it is stateside. So it forces me to pay attention to what you guys have going on. Yeah. Speaking of which, this guy, a lot of people feel as though he's out of his league because I kind of watched him rise and kind of peak, if you will. I'm talking about Paul Butler. Are they throwing him to the wolves against Inoue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was reading it all earlier and stuff, and gotta say, Paul Butler is being thrown to the wolves there.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was a little bit curious. I said, I know Paul Butler is willing to go in there and fight, but you put him in there against somebody that's a killer, somebody that's going to attack you. That ain't really a good fight for him. And the worst part about it is because he's going to engage.
I know. He ain't scared of it, is he? Do you know what I mean? So he's, I almost feel sorry for him in a way.
He always is match tough. That's the thing about Butler. He hasn't had any walkthroughs. His frequency of fights. I mean, he's almost. There was a point when Butler was fighting every 3 months, just about every 2 to 3 months. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to put him in here with Inoue, I think it's an opportunity, but more of an opportunity for Inoue to get more exposure. In the UK, I think it really is, man. But that fight's in December, so a nice fight to end the year. I could respect that. Moving on a bit though, one thing, bigger fighters moving up, moving around. We know we got Kambosos and Haney coming up. A lot of people, they might expect Haney to move up to 140 after the Kambosos defense. But we're hearing from Bob Arum, at least, that he wants the winner of Kambosos and Haney to fight Lomachenko. That fight's been floated around, but what do you personally think about, I guess, looking past Kambosos in a way, and also the prospects of that winner fighting Loma?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, it's fair, and I think Haney will put up a good fight against Loma. That's an unpredictable fight for me. I don't know nearer to the time. I have to decide nearer to the time. It's one of them ones.
Sure.
And ain't being horrible. I probably am looking past Kambosos because I think I can't imagine Kambosos changing that style he's got, right? And there ain't no way he's gonna learn a style like that so quick to beat Haney. So I think it's just going to be like the first fight. Even I think it's just going to be like the first fight, exactly like that.
And I think that's fair because ultimately we're not disrespecting Kambosos and we're not putting him, aside when we say that. But Devin Haney is on an ascension. He's doing some different things in the ring and he's still got a lot of work to do. Again, we're talking about him moving up. What's he going to do? So it's fair to look past that fight. I totally agree with you. And when it comes to the Loma fight, I'm not really, conflicted about it. I'm apprehensive because I feel like Bob is just floating it out there because, he said he wanted Shakur and Loma to happen. Then he said he wanted, Haney and Shakur to potentially happen. Now he wants that. So, I don't know. It's him just making sure. Yeah, is he putting all these fighters on notice? Like, yo, I'm not protecting anybody. Like, everybody's got to fight, or because I don't want to get my hopes all up. You see what's happening to it. I don't want to get off script, but we see what's happening with Spence and Crawford, right? I don't want to get my hopes up for a fight that will delay until the day. So, but the funny thing is, Loma's in play, and that I do respect. Would you prefer the Haney fight or would you prefer the Shakur fight if you had to see Loma? We know he's got Jermaine Ortiz, so he can't look past his opponent. But if we had to, what do you prefer, Loma against Haney or Loma against Shakur?
Loma against Haney, because it's like you said. I think them names have been floating longer than the Shakur Stevenson has been around that era. So I just think I'd like to see Loma and Haney get it done, and then we can move forward. And maybe Shakur Stevenson comes in with Haney one day and they meet. Who knows? But I definitely want to see Loma and Haney more than anything.
And that's a brilliant way to put it, because I just thought about it, especially. You think of Loma's age, not putting him out, but where Haney's going experience and physically wise, career wise, his apex, and where Loma's at, it's time for those guys to collide for a bit of sorting out, right?
Definitely.
Now, if we look at what's happening this weekend, right, you got two guys that I think, before we put Shakur in that picture against Haney or Loma, we got two guys fighting this weekend that I think Shakur, first of all, we hear Hector Garcia it wants a piece of Shakur Stevenson. Now, how do you rate Hector Garcia, especially in light of what he's done to one Roger Gutierrez this past weekend?
Yeah, I fancy Hector Garcia. I think I'd watch that. I'd watch that fight any day of the week. I'd like to see that, definitely. Hector Garcia is a great fighter, and it's a fight to make. I think that's a tough fight. I think Shakur Stevenson still gets past him, but I still think that's a fair fight for him, definitely.
And it reminds me of like Ugas challenging whoever, you know what I'm saying? Like a guy that came out of nowhere and was willing to challenge whoever. So I love Hector Garcia. I love what he's doing because he was a late replacement for Gutierrez, and he took on Colbert, beat Colbert, then he doubled back and get Gutierrez, right? So if we know there's promotional issues, but we're fans, we throwing that shit out the window. If I had to see it play out, I'd love to see Shakur and Hector Garcia clear up this 130, discrepancy going on.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if Shakur were to move up, we got these two guys that are fighting this weekend. We have a Pedraza, Jose Pedraza, that is, or
Yeah.
Richard Comey, guys that have been in there with, Tiafimo and Loma. So I would love to see that play out that way, right?
Yeah. I think Richard, I can't say his name properly. I can't say any of their names properly, but I think Richard
Comey.
definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think he wins this. Richard Comey.
Tell me why.
Well, the the Puerto Rican style and that guy, and the ways, the combinations and stuff. I don't think he's going to get past that. Because when he's I forget his name.
Pedraza.
Yeah, Pedraza. I can't ever say it properly. But when he's at that pace, like he did, I know it was a long while back, but when he fought Tank Davis.
Sure.
When he's at that pace, he's doing brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I think Comey will be a bit, cautious of that, and I don't think he'll. I see it like how he was in the Loma fight not long ago.
And it's interesting you compare that fight, because that fight was the first time I seen Comey get, ravaged. I seen him get abused, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just mean like a fighter that was being dominated and he couldn't figure out, he couldn't move out of the way of a punch, right?
Yeah.
I think, though, he still has a sense of courage. Now, he's had a fight after the Loma fight. I think he stopped his last opponent.
Did he?
I think so.
All right.
If I'm wrong, then I'm totally wrong of what I think could happen. Because like you said, if he hasn't had anything to build his confidence after that Loma fight, I don't even think he has the confidence to kind of change the pace. So if Pedraza's getting in that pocket with that, the boxing and the pacing, I don't think, after being overwhelmed, coming from Loma, getting the pressure from him and getting pressured with that boxing style, I don't think he breaks form and gets aggressive. I think he kind of stays in a bit of a guard, and he's trying to figure out. Yeah. Now, if I'm right about him having had some recent action and it was a stoppage, those are the kind of things that can build a puncher's confidence, in a sense that it'll at least make him feel like he could be a punch away from changing the pace, or at least being able to establish something for himself. I think it could be more of a 60-40 fight than 50-50. I just love giving 50-50 because I say both these guys made it to the ring and they made it out the corners. They made it off their stools. So they both got a chance. But sometimes we know there are some subtle advantages and there are some glaring disadvantages. And I think that, Pedraza's skill. Now, I know he's coming into this bout off of a win. So I know his momentum and his confidence to keep up that pace that you're describing and talk about.
Yeah.
He may be a little bit more primed for the victory, but I
just love the way he connects and the combinations. When he lands, he ain't landed one, he's landing many, and I love that type of style.
He makes you deal with the pressure, so you either have to punch back or get out the way. If you get out the way, he might move with you. Go ahead, give me something.
I was going to say, if you've noticed, a lot of Puerto Ricans do fight like that.
Yeah.
I've noticed that. Like Amanda Serrano, for an example.
It's the volume and the footwork, being able to kind of cut off the angles and give you high volume. They'll get out the way, but they want to give you before they get out.
Yeah.
And it's slightly different from that Mexican style where it's like, yo, I'm coming forward and I'm selling out because I'm kicking the door down. The Puerto Rican style is a little bit more sneaky in a way where it's like, okay, I'm gonna move with that offense. I'm coming in here on an angle. I'm coming in here on a slight, but I'm coming.
Yeah.
I might come through a window. I might not come through the front door, but I'm coming through a window.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, also on that undercard, we talked a bit about heavyweight in the beginning, but here we're rounding it out with the guy that's been in camp with Tyson Fury. We're talking about a very young Jared, the new big baby Anderson. What do you think of his development if you've been following him?
Jared Anderson, do you know what? He's amazing. I think he is the next Deontay Lara in a few generations. I generally think that. People go, oh, this guy's only had 11 fights. all right, but he's KO'd every single one of them for a start in devastating fashion. And ages ago, I actually compared him. I'd like to see a fight with him and Fabio Wardley.
Yeah. I like
because
that.
they've both got that like slickness style and the power. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they've both knocked out every person they've fought pretty much.
Sure.
Same amount of fights. And I'd like to see Jared Anderson build up more of a fan base around UK, everywhere, because he's a really entertaining fighter.
Definitely.
And I remember someone said, I forgot who it was, but someone said Jared Anderson would put up a fight with Deontay Wilder. And people were laughing, saying, oh, don't be silly. And I'm thinking, I think he would. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, listen, there's still some other, young heavyweights on the other side. I'd love to see him against a Tony Yoka,
Yeah.
I know Tony Yoka's more or less based in France, but you could move that one over to the UK and make it an appealing fight.
He would have many fans from here. If Jared Anderson fought in the UK, I'm already a fan, but the casuals would become a fan of him if he came to the UK.
And even somebody who's got a fight scheduled, I think the 29th of October, I put it in the notes, we didn't get to it, but since we're talking heavyweight action, what about Hughie Fury? You know what I'm saying? Ooh. Jared Anderson and the Hughie Fury. Now, Hughie's the more experienced fighter, but if we want to see, does Jared have the boxing skill and he's not all power, I think that's a great, litmus test for him. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Hughie Fury, he does struggle against a lot of heavyweights. In no disrespect, because I know how hard it is, but I think he needs to become more active a bit more.
Sure.
Because he always go for a stage where he has a big fight and then he'll just disappear for the next year or two. And then, do you know what I mean? I'd like to see Hughie Fury be a bit more active.
No, I agree. Well, thankfully we get to see him. I forgot who his opponent is, but we'll see how he's been maintaining. Michael Hunter. Oh man. Now listen, Jared Anderson, Michael Hunter is a great fight too.
Yeah, definitely.
Because remember, Michael Hunter, he kind of gave Usyk a tough time, and that's been his claim to fame. In as many, he hasn't done much in the heavyweight division, but at cruiserweight, that was his claim to fame. He gave Usyk a difficult time, and there was some questions about, and that's kind of been an unfair thing that's been following Usyk. He's not a real heavyweight. Look at what happened to him against Michael Hunter. Well, guys, respectfully, I love AJ, but for what he's done with, throw all that not a heavyweight shit out the window, man.
Yeah,
throw all that out the window.
The guy beat Joe Joyce in amateurs. That is not an easy fight. Right,
definitely.
And this is what made me tell people that he was going to beat AJ the first time when they fought, because Usyk's not stupid, right? He knows what to do, right? He's obviously fought people AJ size and weight, and he's had fights with people like that. And I don't know if you've ever watched his fight with Joe Joyce.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw the fight going. Anyway, that's how I saw it going, because Joe Joyce, he isn't too far off from like the AJ back when he was in the amateur days. He was a bit more faster, and there wasn't much of a difference. And that's why I knew Usyk was going to beat AJ the first time.
Well, he put the exclamation point on it, and listen, we're going to put the exclamation point on this one. Always a pleasure having you here, brother. Please tell the people one more time where they can find you.
Go find me on Instagram, Scotty.boxing. Always here to talk about boxing. Always. Best topic.
Listen, if I'm Muhammad Ali, this is my Larry Holmes. We both going down in greatness. In order to get great, you need great sparring. This is my guy. Salute to you, man. Championship rounds. One more in the books, and we out of here.